My name is Andrew Linton. I work as a media solutions consultant at LinkedIn. Now, what does that actually mean? That means that I help clients, such as yourselves, find ways to better promote your marketing and your branding through the LinkedIn platform. Essentially, anything that doesn't involve your recruiter licenses or your jobs, I'm the man to come to, and I'll help you promote yourself. I'm joined here today by two of our EMEA partners, Sylvia and Ilko. Guys, I'll let you guys just introduce yourselves quickly and give the audience a quick rundown before we delve into the agenda.
Sylvia.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Sylvia Zanella. I am the Global Director for Social Media Online Marketing in the Adecco Group. I have been working in the online recruiting industry over the last 11 years, and now I'm in charge of the digital strategy for the Adecco Group at a worldwide level.
I'm Ilko van Eyck. I'm one of the partners in the Amsterdam office of AMROP Executive Search. We are a firm with 80 offices in more than 50 countries. I'm 10 years partner in Executive Search. Before that I was 20 years in the fast-moving consumer goods. Started as a sales rep and ended as a vice president. Worked with Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo and RecruitIn.
Perfect, thank you. So as mentioned, today we're going to be talking about talent pools, what that means for you and your business, and how you can essentially build, engage, and recruit by using them. The first part of today's session is going to be a panel discussion between myself, Sylvia, and Ilko, and that'll last around about 30 minutes or so. Then what I'd like to do is just take a little bit of a deep dive into audience personas and how important that part of your business is, how you market yourself and your brand to the external world. And what I'd actually like to do, and we'll put this out to an open audience, is actually get one of you guys up here and we'll develop a persona live as we go. So it's unscripted. Hopefully it works, fingers crossed. And then we'll actually go into a Q&A session at the end. So we've got time for that. Feel free just to ask anything you want and one of us will answer. So guys, I guess first of all, talent pools. So it's a term that's used quite a lot in the industry, but it's not necessarily understood that well. So I guess I'd like to start by asking what do talent pools mean to you and to your organization?
Okay, so for me, if I can start, I would say that talent pool is not exactly the definition that I like the most. If we take a look at the definition here, which is taken from Wikipedia, we talk much more about community. The reason why I don't like the idea of pool is because it's kind of passive one, whereas I would like to focus much more on interaction and a kind of two-way communications, which is necessary for us at a global level. Of course, we are present in 60 countries. We have tens of brands, of different brands, so we of course have talent pools, but at the same time we need to really be able to create a conversation with all the professionals that are out there and try to connect and to engage with them.
Cool, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think that the sort of thing I've got on the screen here sums it up really nicely. It's not just about a static talent pool that sits in your business on some database in the background. What it's actually about is actually a community of people where you can actually interact on a two-way basis, whether that be candidates, clients, or consultants. And just sort of taking it one step further with you guys, just look at how actually have talent pools helped you on a day-to-day basis in your businesses, and how do you actually roll that out?
Shall I pick that up? In our work in search, I think the talent pools are very important. It's very often the starting point where we start projects when we search for certain jobs. The people that we know, that we are familiar with, that know us, are very often the best source to give us information where to go to find the talent which is needed to make the best fit for the job we're looking for. So it's exactly what you said. It's a real dynamic situation, having permanently contact with the people on the candidate side, on the client side, so that you know who to contact when it's necessary to find the best match for the job that we need to do.
Cool, cool. And obviously you guys work for large sort of multinational organizations. So I guess a question that I'm quite interested to explore, and I think some of our audience will be as well, is how talent pools have necessarily helped you actually expand into new sectors or new locations and map out effectively the sort of route to market, I guess.
Okay, so for sure for us, talent pools do play a key role. Adecco is generally known for temporary staffing, but actually we are also very well focused on permanent placement, and this is also done via different business units and different brands. So of course we need to, on one side, have the availability of a big, massive talent pool, generalistic one, let's call it. But on the other side, we really need to focus on specific niche. And this is where the interaction game starts.
Cool, cool. And from that point of view, just moving on, how it's actually helped you amplify your message at scale using the different social channels? How does the talent pools you use help you define how you should, what channels you should use for different audiences, I guess?
If I may say something, I'm very focused on the consumer goods and retail sector, and over the last few years, I think everybody will realize lots of retailers came with the fear in their eyes that e-tail is developing incredibly. They needed people with digital knowledge, so they came to us, can you please help with finding those people that can help us building up our retail organization, but also the other way around. I mean, lots of startup companies at a certain moment when they start an e-tail firm, they realize, okay, it's starting to get so big, we need people with experience from retail, for example, for supply chain, for merchandising, for any other things. So they came also again to Ilko, you know those people, you know the market, can you help in finding managers that can really take care of elements of our growing business? So that's how you create the interaction between different sectors with talent pools if you do it well. And like Mr. Khan said, I strongly believe that you need to focus on certain industries, you need to make choices, because then you are also viewed and experienced as an expert.
Okay, I guess obviously from that point of view, as you say, sort of focusing on key industries that you can actually sort of communicate with and branch out to. So I guess for me that raises the question of how do you go about communicating those audiences and how do you go about understanding them? So we know that talent pool exists, but then we want to actually take that further and we want to start converting it into conversation and essentially revenue at the end of the day.
If I may, I might give a nice example out of my own experience. I was 20 years in the industry. So at the end I was vice president and I did very often business reviews. So in the beginning when I started in search, was together with clients, I had too much an opinion. I was really doing a kind of similar job as I used to do when I was with RecruitIn here at the end. And then I had to change my mind and really change myself to be much more consultative. You have to, I mean, you need to share an opinion and vision. You need to share that you have knowledge. But I was not a business manager anymore. I had to make a transformation to a consultant. And I think if you do it well, you can really succeed. Yeah.
If I may add something on this, I really think that something that has been said during the plenary session is really key. So recruiters should start out as marketers, and I would say vice versa. So it's, to do that, I think that one thing is really key, and here I try to give an answer to your question. Listening, in my opinion, is the first step to be taken into account. So you can't simply go with your own way to communicate and try to do a one-way communication. It's not like that. It's not like it's not going to work simply. So to bring our experience there, we have had some communication crises in the past. So we really decided to take the opportunity to deliver a global model in terms of listening. So we want to be aware of what's going on related to all our brands. We really want to make sure that the kind of feedback they are requesting are responded quickly. And this also allows us to try to prevent crises, if it is the case, try to track what we do and try to track our campaigns, and possibly do some lead generation as well. And going back to your question, of course, listening is for me, is the necessary step to be taken into account when you have to create personas. Of course, you need to be aware of what your ideal candidate on one side, or client, or consultant you have in front of you. Of course, it's about a generic profiling, but it's really important because it's all about communication. You can have a very good job ad there, but unless you are able to put it to the right audience and to create the right connection with them and be trustable in the kind of values that you are communicating to that, or it will be more and more difficult for you to find the right person.
I 100% agree, and I think that's something sort of talking about the persona type of thing. So we'll come on to this in a little bit later today. But it's actually sort of working out and spending the time and effort and sort of laying the groundwork of actually defining, I want to attract this type of person to my company because I know that I can place them, I know that I can make good amounts of revenue from them. But actually, how do I do that? How do I understand their goals? How do I understand their challenges? You know, what keeps them awake at night? How do I understand actually how do they consume content today? That's actually how therefore can I then position myself as a thought leader, and actually make me the brand of preference. And it's something that I spend a lot of time talking to clients about. Not all of which are at the sort of developed stage that you guys are, but it's definitely a growing trend in the industry, and something that I think needs to be looked at further. I guess a kind of an open question, just to move on from that. I guess what do you guys see as sort of changing the way that we actually communicate with audiences? So obviously we've got personas, we spend time doing that, but what's changing the face of candidate communication, and how do we go into that?
If I may, I'm a strong believer. I mean, in retail, it's all about the companies that will be successful are making the best combination of clicks and bricks. And I think in our industry, the people that in the future that will be able to build that personal brand in using the best aspects of the digital, let's say, available products like LinkedIn, I think the people that are best familiar in using digital and their personality will long-term be the survivors in this business. You need to create a kind of also identity that people trust. Yeah, it could be that you build up that identity through the digital or social media, but also in the person-to-person context that will remain, and it will not disappear. But only the people or the firms that are able to combine that in the best way will be the long-term survivors. It's similar with clicks and bricks in the retail world.
Yep. And Ilko, when you say sort of personal brand, is there sort of examples that you can think of that relate to that?
I brought actually a small video with me to demonstrate what I actually mean with personal brand and how companies already use it. And I think you have the video, and maybe can you put down the light so that we see? And the music is important, yeah. Maybe someone would know it.
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Say don't try this at home. But what I would like to demonstrate is that a strong brand like Volvo uses a person to endorse their own brand on an incredible technical, high-end innovation, new development that they want to demonstrate. So they're not talking about the technique, they're using a person actually to endorse the technology of this parallel or back-driving system. It's all high-tech. But I realized that when we are a search firm being asked by clients to go into the market for a key role in their organization, they should be, and most of them are very careful in choosing the person that will be the face of their brand for the time being when they are in the market. And the real good high-level search people are able to attract the high-level executives for the important role that they need to fulfill. So this made me actually realize that also in our work, working on your personal brand is a permanent thing. It's really something you have to do very, very careful over time. And I have a second example to demonstrate who did that very well. Everybody knows him. He's not out of the search industry, but it's a very famous person. It's George Clooney. Yeah? The 4 building blocks of building personal brand is behavior, the creation of your image, the tone of voice with how you speak, and actually a kind of key message that's continuously underlying in everything that you do. I mean, he was always surrounded by the best and most beautiful women in the world, really the top-class ladies. I mean, his behavior was characterized with the fact that he was always polite, always well-dressed, even working for the good cause in Darfur. Yeah? And he had one clear message all the time that was the ideal bachelor son-in-law. Yeah? I mean, as far as I heard, every female liked him. But the good thing was he was able to create a kind of mystique around him, yeah, for more than a decade. There was even a time that people thought that he was gay, yeah, but still he was surrounded with this beautiful woman. And suddenly his fiancée, Miss Alamadin, the new one, came in. He will marry, I think, with her next month. And she fits perfectly in this brand that George Clooney created. And everybody is okay that she took the ideal bachelor son-in-law. Yeah? So he has been very consistent over ages, and therefore Nespresso used him for more than 10 years as the face of their product. So he endorsed Nespresso. Everywhere he was, the people reminded the brand Nespresso. So you see the link between business and human beings. And I'm convinced that in my business, I mean, we're searching really on the top level. It is very, very important to make that combination. Last slide to end my part of the story is a perfect visualization of the job that we are in every day. Our clients want candidates that have the perfect fit. But if I'm walking in the forest of candidates, it's very, very hard to, or easy to overlook the ideal candidate. And this is very well illustrated by this picture. This was the winning picture of the National Geographic contest last year. And it's all in a tree.
Perfect, thank you. There's some great examples. I think using the sort of celebrity analogies is something that everyone here understands and knows about. Silva, we were talking earlier as well about how important it is not just at a top level, but at every level throughout the business.
Yeah, sure. If I might comment what we have just seen, actually, the point for me is, again, to try to mix up normal things and traditional ways we intend them. So as long as HR becomes marketing, marketing should become HR. And of course, you need a specific set of competencies and skills to do that. So you need to work on your own personal brand, on your own communication assets, and what you can do in order to make people feel that they can trust you, which is so key in our industry. On the other side, I was referring back to the examples that we have just seen, and the thing that one might think is, okay, these are of course big brands, big actors. What can I do in order to make my own brand, my own personality becomes a personal brand? And of course, this does not mean that this only applies to superstars and $1 million actors. So what we try to do every day in our company is to make sure that every contact we have do get a consistent and at the same time unique experience when they get in touch with one of our colleagues. All over the world, we are more than 30,000, and we are from in any kind of country. So you can imagine, but also from a cultural diversity point of view, that's hard to try to bring a common sense of that. At the same time, I really think that whenever a person enters into a branches or on the other side comes into contact with one of our consultants in the top executive level, they have to feel that they are right in front of the real person that can help them in their career. Either if they are looking for a person, if they are a client, or if they are looking for a job and they have been asked for a job interview. So I think that in this case, and this leads me to the following slide that we were preparing together, to the big topic for us as well in terms of training and internal education. Of course, as I was saying, we are a super huge company, and this implies that we have different cultures and different brands with different brand assets at the same time. So there are many things that we try to do at a global level in order to try to be consistent. So as we were saying before, we can work on the communication assets. We can work on an editorial plan. We can work in making people and our colleagues conscious of what they can do every day in their everyday life, whether it's about their Twitter account, whether it's about their sponsor updates, strategy, or if they want to focus really on their personality. And we have very good results. Maybe some of them do belong to the senior management section, let's say, of our company. Some of them are simply people in the branches, but actually for their own niche community, they are the reference point. And this is exactly our mission, be the reference point for every niche market we are in.
Perfect. And just sort of going back to the sort of finding talent and how hard it can be as well. And okay, again, just referencing back to a conversation we had about trying to find talent. And obviously it can be hard. You know, you've built your personal brand, you've built your talent pools out, you've sort of worked out how to engage that audience. But, you know, sometimes it's hard. You can't always meet the client brief immediately. I guess you gave me an example I'm thinking specifically of where you went outside of the obvious place to look for a candidate.
Yeah.
Would you be able to share that with
Yeah, of course. I got a call from my colleague from Denmark, and I was invited with at the CEO of one of the world's biggest cleaning companies. And they needed a new CEO or general manager in the Netherlands. And it's a company, they employ about 20,000 people. And he said, we want a new CEO, but it should not be somebody out of the cleaning industry, because we want to bring him some new things in the coming years. So I was sitting together with the CEO, and I tried to find out, okay, what are the key essences of that industry? Because I wanted to make a comparison. Where could I find people that are familiar with the similar elements? So I was talking with him, and we came actually to about 7 or 8 elements of the cleaning industry. It's a multi-site management firm, because they have many locations. Customer intimacy is incredibly high. Many people work even in the processes of the clients. It's a tender business. It's labor intensive. Labor is a big part of the P&L. And so we made a list of 7 key elements of the business. Then I went back and realized, together with my researcher, we said together, okay, which kind of industries have the similar main elements in their work? And then you talk about retail. Then you talk about, for example, public transport. Every train is a store. You could see it like that. It's labor intensive again. It was the express services, TNT, DHL, those kind of companies. So we had 4 industry sectors, and in the industry sectors we worked out the 10 biggest companies in our country. I went back to the CEO, is this more or less what you had in mind? He said, yes, perfectly. So what we did, we mapped all the number 1s, so the general managers and the number 2 in those companies. I didn't know them all, to be honest. So we worked out a very brief call sheet, and I approached 23 CEOs or the number 2s in those companies. I spoke with 17, and I had 15 on the table, and we presented 6 or 7 candidates to the client. But it was a completely odd way of approach, and really also cracking my mind, okay, how should we solve this? And finally, they took somebody out of that client group. But I was really calling, I mean, I still remember, I called a guy, and he was there's a British firm, Group for Security. So I spoke with the general manager of the company. I still remember that because of something. And he said, why are you calling me? He said, it's cleaning business, something. And then I explained my story. And he said, actually, you have a point. I come for an appointment with you. So it was really also thinking, okay, how can I touch people when I, in 30 minutes, speak with them so that they get interested for my client? And that's the story that we are also very often the ambassador of the client. I very often work for international companies that are not even known. And nobody knows the company, but there are big firms in the world that you have never heard of. And when I need to find a marketing director for those kind of companies, it starts with explaining who the company is. And so you need to touch people when you call them for the first time, that they are getting interested.
I mean, for me, that's a great example of how sort of without the talent pool centric approach,
Yes.
you may not have been able to fill that.
Sometimes
fill
we're
that
forced to,
vacancy. Yeah. So I mean, I think for me, that's one of the best examples I've heard of using talent pools effectively and actually thinking outside the box as well. So not just thinking, I've got this brief here, that's my talent pool. It's actually thinking, well, what else can I use and what other touch points can I make the most of to actually leverage that talent and bring it from potentially outside of the norm. Just sort of a final question. I'm going to leave this quite open for you guys as well. It's just looking ahead for the next 12 months. What would you sort of say are the things we need to be looking at? What do you see as potential growth areas and what's going to change, especially around sort of talent pooling and better understanding audiences?
No, I think I elaborated a little bit already. I mean, we've been in contact with your company, with one of your colleagues for about, 5-6 months. And actually, your colleague made us realize that LinkedIn is much more than a recruitment tool. It's a fabulous tool that you can use through social media to present yourself in the market or in the segment of the market where you want to be seen, be known. So we see it also as a much more a business development element. The future, in my opinion, is really for the companies that are using, let's say, the personal element and the technical element the best. That's clear.
Yeah. So on my side, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to talk about here in preview regarding a global social recruiting study we have been conducting over the last 6 months, and we collected the answers from 24 countries and actually 70,000 candidates on one side and 1,500 recruiters on the other, and we specifically investigated everything that is related to social recruiting, and we will present that in 3 weeks, always here in London, and it has already given us very specific messages regarding what's going to change. So first of all, digital and social media is going to matter more and more, and incredibly more related to the past. So its growth is not linear, but it's much more exponential.
Yep.
Yeah, and on the other side, conversation is going to be the next tipping point. So on one side, of course, as someone was saying during the plenary session, we shouldn't think of social media as job boards, simply put. Because it's not like that. It's simply something different. If they want to go to job boards, they simply go to Monster or whatever else. They are simply asking us, so when I say they, I mean both candidates and consultants, to start the conversation with them. So I think this will be the next key message for that. And of course, web reputation will be as well key for both stakeholders.
Definitely. I think that brings us back to the sort of the original point around talent communities and how it's very much about two-way communication and sort of creating that conversation and such. You know, you can't hide anymore. What you do is amplified out there. How you engage with your audiences is becoming more and more important. It's not just about grabbing one person from somewhere and placing them somewhere else. It's actually about all the touch points that go on between that as well. And how, I guess the question to ask yourselves as a business is, how are you managing that today? What are you doing to actually engage your audience and start communications with them and conversations? Cool, that sort of brings us to the end of our initial panel discussion. Sylvia, Ilko, thank you very much for your time and help. Sylvia and Ilko are going to hang around up here, so we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. What I'd like to go into now is the bit I mentioned earlier about potentially, hopefully, getting one of you guys up here to come and help me out and create a persona live, albeit a very quick, short one, for 5-10 minutes now. Before I do that, I just want to give you a little bit of background information and point you in the direction of some resources that are freely available on LinkedIn. So this is looking at a talent pool that we've put together. So this is specifically looking at Java developers. But what it's doing is looking at the demographics that we know about and the data that we have to actually say, well, I want to recruit Java developers. I know it's a high profit margin market, but how am I doing that? And what areas should I be actually focusing on as a business? So I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty detail on this right now, but there is a session later today, back up in Portaton, I think it's 3:45, that will go into a lot more detail on this. As well, there's an insights booth just outside in the King George. Our team are all over there. If you've got questions you want to ask about specific talent pools or where you can find business or how those guys can help you make the most of your business and leverage the communication, please feel free to go and see them as well. But what this does is then goes a bit further and says, okay, so Java developers, that's great. We're looking at where we can actually find them. But what are they interested in? So what motivates them from a day-to-day basis? And this starts the really early days of what a persona would look like. It informs that conversation as well. So what keywords they're using in their profiles and that kind of thing. Help you guys find them easier. But more importantly, start that conversation that we just said is a big growing trend. It already exists, but how it's going to grow exponentially over the next sort of 12, 18 months. And what we'd look to do is, and then make this into essentially a persona. So this is an example I did with a client. And this is a fairly high level at the moment. Doesn't go into too much granular detail. But what it's looking at is saying, right, using the Java developer, JavaScript developer. So they know that Copenhagen is a massive growth market for them. And then we've looked at actually stereotyping this user out to say, that, okay, so he's 29 years old. He lives in Copenhagen. He earns around 50,000 euros a year. But actually going deeper and trying to not just understand the top level information that everyone has, but actually saying, well, what are his goals? What does he want to achieve in his career that's actually going to make him successful? You know, so it's stuff like using the latest Java developer languages. I think something called CoffeeScript or something I've got written up there. All weird names. And then actually looking at his challenges. So what keeps him awake at night? What worries him from a day-to-day point of view? And then how can we relate in content to appeal to that? Look at his interests as well. So it's not just about work. Appeal to people on a personal level as well. So these guys are big gamers, for example. Play PS4s and Xboxes all day long. Think of ways that creatively that you can actually start conversations around that with them. Put on a gaming night or something. That's an idea. And then actually where are they consuming content from? So it's stuff like, where do they get their content day to day online? But as well, taking that step back and actually going a bit old school and look at the offline point of view. So we know, like, for example, if I put it to you like this, if I read The Sun in the morning, I'll get a story written in 300 words that tells me kind of what I need to know. But then if I pick up the Times, I'll see exactly the same story, but it'll be a 3,000-word article. And it'll tell me a hell of a lot more detailed, in-depth information. Minus, obviously, the political slants they both have. But you get the general gist and the general idea. And then we're actually taking this, the screen you can see further here at the back here, is just actually, so what content can we create or curate from elsewhere that's actually going to meet his goals, his challenges, and his interests? So what I'd like to do, and hopefully this will work, is actually open it up. So I'd like to create a really quick example, just for 5 minutes, with one of you guys. Free consultancy, guys. Come on up. I think we got a just come on over. We've got to get a mic as well.
We can sit there.
Is it James? Cool. Do you want to introduce yourself very quickly, James?
Hi, my name's...
Oh, is it on? Testing.
Hi, my name's James O'Brien. I'm the CEO of a company called Executives Online, which is an executive search and interim management business.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you, James, and thank you for agreeing to do this. So I guess just looking at your business, what sort of key sectors do you serve? I guess if I was to ask you this question right now, it's putting you on the spot slightly, but if I was to give you 5 candidates that were all one type of person, what sector, what would be their job title? Because you know you can place them and you know their high profit margin.
We'd look for, on the interim management side, working in private equity, looking at, let's say, program director. Okay,
so let's say program director as a title. And would these people be generally male, female, what's the stereotypical?
Stereotypical, I'll just use the stereotypical 80-20.
Cool.
Male, female.
So 80-20 male, awesome. And how old would this type of person be?
Typically 45 to 60.
Okay, so let's go with 50, just to keep it a nice round figure. And where would they be based? Where are they UK-centric? Are they throughout Europe, worldwide?
They're European-wide, but mainly I'll be looking for people who are UK focused.
Okay, we're going to say London, I'm going to guess?
Yeah, London South.
Cool, let's say London. And what type of salary are they on right now?
Well, I'm talking on the interim, so probably talking, let's just use a figure of £1,000 a day.
Okay, awesome. And how much experience do they have, obviously, to be interim?
10, 15 years.
Cool, awesome. 10 to 15 years is a good range. So I guess putting your sort of candidate hat on for a minute, What would the sort of goals of this person be? What drives them? What do they want to achieve in their career? Is it about working on the latest technology like the JavaScript developer, or is it?
No, they like challenging and complex projects, which they're looking for something that's challenging, complex, something where they'll have a sense of achievement at the end.
Okay, and is it about building up their personal brand that we were talking about earlier, their reputation in the industry?
Certainly, not so much personal brand, but reputation is important to them in terms of using that as a lever for the next role.
Stepping stone, I guess,
Yeah.
building up their industry from that point of view. Okay, is there anything else that they want to achieve? Do they want to work with certain, on certain projects? Are there big brands that they all aspire to work for and that kind of thing?
No, interim managers will generally, they'll work on whatever the challenge is. They're looking for a company where there's a problem that they can fix.
Okay.
Like the satisfaction of completing something.
Of course, it's more about the challenge rather than the remuneration that they're going to receive for that.
Yeah, to some extent.
We'll put money in as well. Always drives us, doesn't it? Yeah. Don't we all? Cool. So just for time, I'm going to move on. So challenges. What keeps this person awake? So if they're interim, is it finding the next
role?
Yeah.
The challenge they have is how do they market themselves when they're working?
Yeah.
And so inevitably downtime. The less downtime, the greater their utilisation rate.
Okay. And obviously we're saying London, UK based, but potentially global.
Yeah, potentially. The candidates, the way that interim management works is the candidates, their location is irrelevant.
Yep.
Because they will live out of a suitcase for 6-9 months
Sure.
without any bother. So.
Sure. So, from that point of view, is international travel and locations generally a driver for them? Or is it, they'd be challenged to move kind of thing?
No, they'll look for the opportunity. Where the opportunity is doesn't really matter, but in an ideal world, if they can sleep in their own bed, then they prefer it. But it depends on, with the client fit and having the right skill set. So the client's looking for a skill set, say the client's got A, B, C and D. That candidate has to have A, B, C and D.
Yep.
E, being geography, is never looked at.
Cool. So personal development is obviously a challenge for them as well, and continuing that. Cool. Okay. Park that for 2 secs. So from an interest point of view, now this is quite hard because this is a massive variation. But let's say, keep it general. They sort of sporty people. Do they like going to theatres? Do they like music? We're trying to really stereotype down. So this is always the hardest bit because this is where we really get under the skin. Is international travel, for example?
No, but they're normally quite intellectual, so they're looking for things which are probably a bit more highbrow than something else. But they could be athletic or sporty, or they could enjoy the theatre or the cinema.
That's nice.
So it's really hard to stereotype these guys. So let's just put sporty for the time being, so we can put an interest in there. And from a point of view from sports, so obviously we're saying they're about 50 years old.
Well, let's stereotype. They like golf.
Golf, yeah. Let's keep it really, really stereotypical for today. Cool, awesome. And where are they consuming their content? So what content do they read?
Definitely the internet is where they're getting a lot of their information. So
are they LinkedIn users?
Definitely LinkedIn users, of course. But
Result,
so they use social media, but they will also, they're more likely to read, when you just use an example of the Sun and the Times or the Telegraph or whatever, they're more likely to read the Times and the Telegraph rather than the Sun, or they might read it as well, but they're looking for the more detail. Yeah. So normally looking to take things in.
Okay. And do they have trade publications that they all sort of read, or online places?
Yeah, if they're focused on that sector, they'll definitely go for whatever is the relevant trade press in that particular environment. They'll also look for information from the target potential clients where they want to work. So they'll use the web to go and do their own research on companies and organisations.
Cool. So trade journals.
The BBC, Bloomberg.
Yeah.
All those things.
All the usual ones. Yeah. Exactly.
YouTube is a big one.
Yep.
Yeah,
cool.
In terms of more and more. So I think that's probably it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys, you'll notice this is fairly blank today. We've done this in literally sort of 2-3 minutes. Obviously, with clients, generally we'd go into a lot more detail, but it gives you an idea of sort of the thought process that goes on behind this, and how you can start thinking about actually in your industry what sort of jobs and roles are there, and how those audiences really differ. So what interests a program manager to that JavaScript developer we mentioned earlier is completely different. So this guy, intellectual development, personal growth.
He's
JavaScript
50 as well.
He is. It's a very young 50-year-old. The JavaScript developer is much younger, obviously interested in gaming and all sorts of geeky stuff as well. That gives you an idea.
Sure, yeah.
James, thank you very much for volunteering. That's awesome. Thank you. Perfect. So before we move on, I just want to give you guys a couple of takeaways. If we can just flick on the slide. Cool. So 5 things to do today. So obviously identify your talent pools. Discuss with Sylvia and Ilko how important this is in your business. You know, the example Ilko gave us earlier, where he's gone outside of his traditional places to look, is actually really powerful. And it's something that's more and more and more important. Create personas. So think about how you communicate with your audience and actually what's going to differentiate you. It's not the same as it used to be. There is much more conversations going. Things are much more open. Define what content works. So think about what we talked about this morning. Build, engage, recruit. Produce a content calendar. So actually what content's going to work, how am I going to post this out to the audience, and actually bloody stick to it as well. It's hard. It's easy to put something on paper and then forget about it when things get busy. But it's really important to keep that conversation going. And in all marketing terms, measure, refine, and always look to improve on what you're doing. Learn from what you've done before and implement changes throughout. This will vary from business to business. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Cool, thank you. Guys, I'd just like to, Sylvia and Ilko, if you want to pop back up. Yep. I just want to open this up to the floor. So there's a couple of mics going around. If you've got any questions, please fire away.
My name's Clara Ranat with Tater Publishing Agency. We engage quite a lot with Twitter at the moment, and not so much with LinkedIn. We post job adverts on LinkedIn. I just wondered whether you think it would need a separate conversation on LinkedIn, or whether we can just reuse the same content we use on Twitter. Obviously, it has hashtags in, so I think would it be a bit, cheap to just put the same stuff onto LinkedIn, or would you repeat it? Yes,
obviously the question whether it's wise to keep reusing content from different platforms and that kind of thing. I mean, the way you communicate on different platforms, whether it be LinkedIn or Twitter, can vary. Obviously, I'm limited on certain platforms by the number of characters, the types of stories that I can tell. But what I would suggest is think about your audience and what are they interested in on those different platforms. So when you're developing out your personas, is that piece of content interesting to me whether I'm on Twitter or whether I'm on LinkedIn? Does the platform I'm consuming that content on matter to me, or is that information still relevant? Personally, I don't see a problem using the same content. It's effective, it's efficient use of time as well, because you're not having to source loads and loads of information. But just make sure that when you're posting it, it's native essentially. So LinkedIn, you can put more than 140 characters, put a little bit more conversational stuff in, and ask more questions, for example. But no, it's not lazy. I'd say it was efficient. Does that answer your? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Job with a question for Sylvia. Sylvia, you are in a very changing market with Adecco, new generation coming into the workforce. They're using social media. Yeah. You're doing a research. We were very interested to read your research. How are you kind of connecting that new group with most of the clients you have, which are maybe older generation and not using social media so much? So how are you dealing with that gap, and what's your strategy towards that?
So thanks for asking that, because that's one of my biggest challenges there. Absolutely. So we are trying to do that. Also because we as Adecco are not actually a digital company. We were not born like that. So actually we had on our own staff and our own colleagues to do some education and some internal evangelization. So for sure, what we try to do is to involve our clients more and more in social HR projects. So we want them to acquire the specific social recruiting skills that are necessary in order to be able to identify the correct candidate on that side. And on the other side, we are also trying to focus pretty much on our own agenda setting. So what I mean by that is that we are trying to bring digital into our 6 key priorities at a global level. So for sure, the change, first of all, has impacted us as well. So we weren't used to think of that. So we are going through a huge change management process. I can tell you, I can see some of my colleagues here, and they know what it's like, because of course we are on the go. We are doing that, And we're trying to bring our clients as well on board. At the same time, what I'm trying to give as a message is the fact that you don't have to think of social media just related to young generation. Of course, I give them for granted. They are there. They are not going to know anything else about that. So, of course, we have to take into account that. But the interesting thing from my perspective is the fact that the older generation is getting digital. So they are having much different needs than they used to have. So it's not only getting in touch with young ones, because in a way you know how to do that, because it's the only way. You don't have any other choice. On the other side is a change of relations. So this is exactly where we are working. We are in the process of doing that. We have developed specific technology for that. We have invested in research on that. So we are on our way to try to be a partner for our clients as well in the digital area. Does this answer your question? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's a question just to the side either.
Hello, I'm Josie. I work at Match Tech Group. I have a question for Sylvia as well, actually. Once you've identified your talent pools, who actually does your content marketing? So do you do it at consultant level, or does marketing do it? And how much are you creating and curating?
Okay, so it depends. It's a very varied and composite reality, because as I was mentioning, we are 60 countries, so many more languages, so many more brands. So we give guidelines, and on one side we develop our contents on our own, and on the other side we do some curation. If I might refer back to the question that was asked before regarding Twitter, that might be an interest case for us, because on one side we do push job ads in very specific niche accounts, and on the other side we do have accounts for several other reasons. So we do thought leadership there, we do PR relations there, we do simple job advertising, we do employer branding. So depending on the resources that are available to the country and to the business unit, we have different strategy. But it all depends on your tone of voice and the kind of usage you want to do with that, and with that kind of audience that you want to reach.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you.
If I could just, I'll just come in there as well, and from a point of view, as Sylvia's exactly right, it depends on your audiences, what you're trying to achieve, the resources available, and that kind of thing. I guess as a guideline of creation versus curation that you mentioned, a good way to think of this is 80-20 principle. So don't be afraid to curate 80% of the time and get the easy stuff out there, as long as it's relevant to its audience, and then really spend your time creating 20% of the time. So really good, impactful, high quality content that you can actually really push your brand out with. And it's actually going to gain traction that way. So 80-20, probably a good guideline. Any other questions, guys? Yep.
Alan Blewett from the panel. Andrew, question for you.
Yep.
When you're engaging with your audience, what is too often and what is too little in terms of engaging with your audience? And that's the key question. Is it once a day, 5 times a day? Is it once a week? Like, do you have statistics on that?
We do. So the question again around obviously how often to post and that kind of thing. So we do have guidelines. You want to aim for 20 times per month. We know actually by posting 20 times a month, you'll reach around 60-70% of your audience that are following your company. But I would also take a step back from that and think to yourself, actually, that's where I want to be, but actually how much time can I dedicate to it as a business, and what resources do I have available as well. So aim for 20 times a month. At the same time, if you can only manage 10, that's great, but just try and step it up over time. But you need to start somewhere. Aim for 20 times a month.
Perfect, thank you.
Basically every day, yeah. Every single day, post something, yeah.
One more question.
Hi there, Stephen from Spencer Ogden here. The common theme of the morning seems to be that recruiters need to act like marketers, marketers act like recruiters between them. Do you think it's got to an extent now that whilst recruiters, of course, need to, especially when they're new or fresh, be trained in the ways of the company and their role, Do you think they need to go so far as a company giving explicit marketing training to recruiters, teaching the ways of content management, copywriting, and do you see the value in that as a business, just to the group?
It's a good question, but I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it needs thinking and thought through before you do it. And I mean, it should fit with the company message that you want to send across as a company anyway. And this is just a new channel of sending out your message. But in my opinion, it should be aligned.
Yeah, I was thinking of that while I was preparing some guidelines for our colleagues. Of course, if you think of a very banal thing, just like finding a job. So when you look for a job, you simply Google it. So it's important for us, for instance, that our colleagues know the basics regarding CEO. That's quite a very specific marketing skill, very specific, super specific. So we need to try to start working on that. What I would like to express is the fact that, in my opinion, the roles are fading one into each other. Of course, everyone has his own set of specific skills, and it's correct that it's like that. But we shouldn't be afraid of taking from others and vice versa, because we are in the digital space. So unless you present your jobs in a certain way and you don't create a certain relationships, you won't be able to get to the right candidates and vice versa. So it's important to take some learnings from others, and possibly we as marketing, because I am in the marketing team, try to do our best to intend and to comprehend the needs of our consultants.
Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.